for joining NAA's daily micro webinar series. My name is Stephanie Anderson, and I am the Industry Operations Manager here at the National Apartment Association. In a continued effort to support and provide our membership with timely operational guidance amid COVID-19, we are producing these daily updates in the form of micro webinars. Each day we will focus on a different topic relevant to the apartment industry. At this time, I would like to direct your attention to the screen. Please take a moment to review our disclaimer. Today's micro webinar is sponsored by our friends at Modern Message. At Modern Message, they understand a digitally engaged resident base can help shift your online reputation in the most dramatic fashion. They are proud to be the sponsor for this important webinar where our members will learn the latest strategies and best practices around review generation during COVID-19. And now for the main event. Today, I'm super excited to introduce my friend Mindy Price, Vice President of Sales at J. Turner Research. Mindy is joining us today to share her expert guidance on reputation management and how we can navigate this during the pandemic. Mindy, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you to our friends at Modern Message for being the sponsor of this micro webinar. We love our friends at Modern Message. All right, you guys, let's jump into reputation management during COVID-19. The first thing that I want to let you know is that Aura scores are still going to be calculated as normal each month. Aura, as you all know, stands for Online Reputation Assessment. It is the standard for the way properties evaluate their online reputation. It's a score between 0 and 100, and every property that we know about in the U.S. has that score if they have online reviews. The score for February across the nation, the average was 57.93. And in March, you can see there was a slight increase, which is positive, to 59.91. Now, we'll see what happens in April, but I just wanted to go over that information with you very quickly. And so let's talk a little bit about what's happening with review sites right now. So some sites have made some changes, the biggest being Google. Google has suspended publishing of reviews right now. Now, a user can still go in and write a review, but they started suspending reviews as of March 22nd. Yelp is closely scrutinizing reviews related to COVID-19, and they started that on March 20th. And then apartment ratings, they have created a new flagging option specifically for COVID-19 reviews. Now, all other review sites, you guys, they appear to be functioning as normal, but I would say make sure you call those sites, make sure you talk to your suppliers about this to verify all information. And so the first thing I also want to note, you guys, that this analysis we're going to be talking about today is based on written reviews by residents. It doesn't necessarily indicate the opinion of J. Turner Research. So let's start getting into the meat of this. We analyzed reviews from March 16th to April 13th. So this is fresh off the press. We wanted to determine the positive, negative sentiments that were expressed in reviews that mentioned COVID-19. And as you can see here, those that are reviewing really feel quite strongly one way or the other as to reviews mentioning COVID-19. And so you can see here that 47% of those reviews were positive. This is up from a prior analysis that we did where only 35% of reviews were positive. And then 45% of reviews that we just looked at were negative compared to when we did this before a few weeks ago, it was 55% negative, and then 8% here were neutral. So it appears that we're moving in a positive direction. And what this tells us is that residents are going to complain, but you also have residents that are going to notice your hard work. So remember to keep note of the positive, you guys. When this is all over, if you've had negative reviews show up, you're going to need several reviews to push those down. So find the good, continue to do the good deeds because there's plenty of them. And remember, this is not just about this moment, but it's about what you're doing because it's going to pay you forward. So now let's take a look at the themes related to COVID-19 mentions. And you can see here at the top, team responsiveness was at 44%. And so in digging into those just a little bit more from team responsiveness, some of the things that we saw in the reviews were reviewers expressed difficulty in reaching team members who were no longer on site. They also expressed some displeasure with the team's ability to assist in things that they perceive as just basic, like new key fobs, mailbox keys, and so forth. And then they also expressed some frustration with barriers of being able to contact the team by having to go through call centers or resident portals. Now, let's look at some of the positives. So many residents were impressed by the team's flexibility and dedication during this difficult period. Some new residents even said they were complimentary of the team's ability to meet their needs during move-in during this very unusual time. So next, let's look at health and cleanliness. So some of the positive reviews, reviewers praised communities for taking action promoting social distancing. They also applauded the increased ability to have hand sanitizer or even being able to request more hand sanitizer in specific areas of the community such as laundry facilities and the front office. But in both positive and negative reviews, residents are paying especially close attention to whether the teams are cleaning the common areas. Some of the negative reviews that we saw for health and cleanliness, their residents are very cautious about contaminated surfaces and share fears about contractors working near their homes, in their homes, and also things like window washing and renovations. Also, some negative reviews about health and cleanliness. They mentioned problems with water shutoffs or out of order laundry facilities as an obstacle. One note here, you guys, we actually have a client. We are making calls across the country to all of our clients, and we're sharing best practices, learning from them, and just being a resource. And on a particular call that I actually had yesterday, one of my clients told me that they are actually installing, at no cost, in-unit washer and dryers. So if they have the ability to install those because they have connections, but then there's also washer and dryers that you can install that you don't have to have connections. That might be something that you want to check out. And then the next thing that we'll talk about, and this is the last one because we are limited on time today, are the financial concerns. So we'll start with negatives. Residents are expressing frustration with lack of flexibility in leasing policies. Now, before I mention these, you guys, don't shoot the messenger. I'm giving you the data, okay? Students are expressing frustration not being able to break their leases without penalty, even though school has dismissed their academic year. Also, residents are frustrated with paying month-to-month pricing, even though they're in a shelter in place and they were already planning on moving out. Some reviewers mentioned dissatisfaction with the enforcement of parking policies and then the cost associated with booting or towing. And then residents shared uncertainty about the future of their employment status and the ability to pay. They also mentioned paying full cost when they have limited use or the lack thereof of amenities and reduced services. But some of the positives. So some communities have begun to offer rent deferments, and reviewers have applauded those accommodations. Again, I have a ton of data for you guys if you want to get more information on this or see some white papers. We have them, but we are in a micro webinar today. So let's move on to sentiment of reviews. So let me explain to you the colors here. So you can see here in green is positive, in gold or that oranges color is neutral, and then red is negative. And so you can see health and cleanliness is really tied, kind of neck and neck, 48% positive, 46% negative. Financial, you can see that the red, you got a lot of red on the financials. So sentiment by theme of those reviews mentioning COVID-19. And then maintenance delay, 44% in the red and 33% in the neutral. And you can see the rest of those on here. So let's look at some examples of some positive reviews. I wanted to share this with you because, you know, we all need a pat on the back. Residents are thankful for you guys for keeping the environment clean, and they do recognize this is a tough situation, and they appreciate you, and they want constant communication. They want consistent communication. And let's talk for a minute about consistent communication. We are finding that residents do not want broad-based communication. They want specifics. They want to know what's in it for them, right? We're all tuned into that radio station. You know what I'm about to say, WWIIFM. What's in it for me? So be as specific as possible. And then let's also talk about consistency. You know, we've seen a number of online reviews and surveys where a property is sending out a physical letter to state they're no longer accepting checks or in-person payments. The complaint is, so what you're saying is, your paper is okay. Your paper is better, safer than ours. No, you guys, we want to make sure that you're not sending out paper and you're not telling them that you can't take their paper. So just be consistent in your messaging. Next, let's talk about turning disappointment into delight. So you're getting all this feedback from your residents, and you're hearing what it is they wish you could do or what it is they wish they could have. And we do hear that your residents are just stuck in their apartments. They want to get out. They want to have some fresh air, but maybe those common areas that they used to like to go to, they're closed down. They don't have access to them. Maybe they can't get to the rooftop. And so an idea, if you have the budget, is get them some essential oils and a diffuser. You can find some that are affordable, and, you know, put a card in there. I know I just said paper, but you're giving them something, right? But give them a care package and let them know you wish times were different. Times will get better, but in the meantime, here's something to freshen up your air. Also, those that are missing the gym and you know, stating that they wish they had access to it, you could give them a care package with weights or with some exercise bands. You could even look into giving them a gift certificate for some virtual classes, exercise classes that they could do. And then another idea, you guys, it kind of dates myself. So see that little picture right there of what looks to be like more of a generic George Foreman type grill? We were seeing so many reviews that were coming in where residents were complaining about not being able to use the grills. And I just thought that was pretty interesting. They were saying, hey, we can sanitize after ourselves. This is something we want to do to be able to get out. Well, unfortunately, in this situation, you can't. And so what about giving them some type of panini type maker that can double as a grill? That's something affordable on your budget, but you're reaching out to your resident. You're giving them something. So you're looking at what can they do. Plus, then they're not going to be grilling, because they shouldn't be, right, with something that could set the apartment on fire outside their balcony. Let's hope that does not happen, of course. So just really thinking about what is it that your resident is saying or asking for or missing, and how can you fill that void? And you guys are creative. You're in the multifamily business. You can think of things outside the box, scribble outside the lines, and figure out what you can do within your budget that's going to help you keep that resident. Because at the end of the day, we all know turn is so much more expensive. Turnover is so much more expensive than hanging on to that current resident. And so I want to end today with some tips for you. And one of the things that you, of course, want to make sure you're doing is monitoring your reviews. And you want to monitor these reviews on a daily basis. Yes, reviews are slowing down because Google isn't posting them yet. When they'll post, we don't know. We don't know what that looks like. As a side note, you guys, and I don't know this is fact, but I want to put this in your mind. If Google decides to post all the reviews, what if the date that that review actually came in on is the date that your prospect or resident sees? So an example, let's say March 25th, a resident went on and gave a review, and maybe Google doesn't post it until May 5th, but it says March 25th. It looks as though you haven't responded for a very long time. So if you are responding to your review, make sure you mention something about about that. And if you've already taken care of the situation, make sure you mention that. If this is just being brought to your attention, make sure that you mention that. Or if you're working with a company like ours and they're responding on your behalf for the reviews, I'm sure they're going to make sure they do that. But I just wanted to put that out there for you guys. So of course, make sure you're monitoring your reviews. Outline a proactive response, which being proactive is a little bit of a tip that I just mentioned earlier, but collaborate with your corporate team to develop what your response is going to be. And then you guys be empathetic. Gosh, we are all in this together worldwide. Like, we've never experienced anything like this in our lifetimes. And so be empathetic in your approach and in your response. And then defer to trusted authorities. So there are times to defer to the CDC for state, for federal, for local, but give that link. Say, here's where you go. Don't just tell them where to go. Show them. Give them the ability to see where to go. And then together we're better. Asking your residents for their help, for tips, for suggestions, for ideas. And one thing that's not on the slide, but I think it's really important to mention, to steer the conversation offline. Assure that reviewer that you're taking the mandatory steps to protect them, but encourage them to take their thoughts and suggestions to you via email. Of course, not in person. And so you take that conversation offline. And then urge flexibility. This is a fluid situation. You want to make sure that they understand that, and you're going to have to make adjustments based on the current situation that we're in. And then the last thing is communicate. Communicate consistency with your residents regarding modifications to the typical lifestyle that they're used to at your community. You know, residents don't want to be surprised. So make sure you're using different communication channels, text, social media, emails, notices throughout the property, and using your resident portal. Because now more than ever, our residents, they're anxiety prone, and your customer service is really going to be put to the test. But by you guys demonstrating patience and empathy, it's going to go a very long ways, you guys. And you've got this. Be creative. Think outside the box. And remember what happens, even if there's some negative, turn that into positive. Turn that disappointment into delight. And then when appropriate, don't be afraid to ask for the review. If you remember that slide earlier, 47% of the hundreds of reviews that we analyzed during this very recent time period were positive. And so asking for those reviews when appropriate, I encourage you to do that. And then after this is done, if you had more negative than positive reviews, get those positive reviews to push those negatives down. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. We are all here together. You can go to J. Turner Research, to the Resource Center. If there's ideas that you have for maybe a next research project, we are happy to look into that. We're happy to share all of the great information that we have. Stephanie, thank you and NAA for allowing me this time.
Thank you so much, Mindy. The pleasure is all ours. We are truly lucky to have someone like you come and share all of your great knowledge with us. So thank you again so much for being here today. To our members that joined us, thank you again. We are here to assist you and support you in every way possible during our current situation. Should you have questions that are specific to coronavirus and you're unable to find the resource that you need on our coronavirus guidance and resources page, please feel free to email the web address that is on your screen, cb19questions@naahq.org. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow for another great webinar. Have a great day.